Welcome back to Postscript. I'm Christina Zeiders.
And I'm Tom Downing.
Today we are talking about Miss Scarlet and the Duke, Season 1, Episode 4. We are watching on PBS Passport, so if you don't have a subscription, $5 a month, join, watch along with us, and then listen to us, please. And you can, if you're listening to this podcast and you want to watch us for some reason, we are on Mosaic. So Allie, our producer, is going to drop a link in the show notes for you, so it's really easy to find. So yeah, that's, I think, everything. If you like us, I guess review us somewhere. That would be great too.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, subscribe, all those good things. So I guess we'll jump right into it.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. This is one of my favorite episodes. Like, it's really great.
I enjoyed it a lot too. And it hits the ground running, and it picks up the question that was left unanswered in the previous episode, because we didn't know if William was going to give credit to Eliza or not. And that's kind of like where we started off.
That was the big mystery of the last episode. And yes, we started off, it's a peaceful day in London. It actually doesn't look too dirty. Streets are a little wet. Nice, beautiful blue, overcast day. And Mr. Parker arrives, Rupert, with a morning edition of the London Post. And I thought it was so funny that this was like, he was so excited about buying his first newspaper ever himself. This is such a new experience for him. So they want to see if Miss Scarlet is in the paper for helping to foil a bomb plot.
Yeah, and kind of a big deal.
Rupert wants to know if he's going to be in it because he's their business partner.
Yes.
But it turns out that the story
doesn't mention them.
Not at all. No, it's all about Inspector Wellington.
Not even Rupert was mentioned.
No, he was like, was I mentioned? She's like,
no.
She kind of shoots daggers at him with her eyes.
Yeah, there's definitely some fire there. Like,
so yeah, we find out that no, William did not give Eliza any credit at all for all of the work that she did. She solved this, essentially.
Yes, yeah.
So we flash over to a scene with William's boss. I think his name is Sterling.
It is.
He's reading the London Post. William and the station are mentioned in the Telegraph and the Morning Chronicle. He's very happy about this because it's great publicity for Scotland Yard.
Yes.
And we find out that the Illustrated Police News, which we found out was a real thing.
Yeah. Eliza likes to read it.
Eliza reads it. A lot of people read it. It's very popular. They want to write a story about William, like specifically William, and his boss asks him to mention him. Mm-hmm. You know, if it's no big deal, no pressure. If you mention me, though, you'll get a promotion. Kind
of implied, yeah. That's a quid pro quo there.
So
you mention me, get the promotion.
Yeah.
There we go. So William has the incentive to push for this.
Yes, he has an incentive to mention his boss and make him sound really, really good.
I took a note here. I said, William is still a jerk.
He is a jerk. He's still a jerk. And Eliza ends up in his office, and she also thinks he's a jerk.
Yeah.
She's really angry that he didn't mention her at all in these stories or give her any credit whatsoever.
And he tries to pass it off like, oh, well, I just, couldn't do it because of, like, it was just it was just it didn't fit. It didn't happen. Yeah, but it'll happen next time.
Oh, yes, of course. Next time he'll give her full credit, and she's mad because she needs the publicity. She's trying to build a detective business as a female detective, and everyone just laughs at her every time she says that she's a female detective. They just go, ha, 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 and it's unpleasant for everybody involved.
And they have they end it on William says, "Good, then that's settled," and then she says, "Oh, it is far from settled." It's back and forth as far as understanding.
No, she's not convinced. She's not convinced at all that he's going to give her credit ever at any point in time.
Yeah.
And so
on her way out, she dramatically leaves the door. Like, she basically slams the door open and just leaves.
Which, I mean, is convenient because the journalist is there.
Yes.
To interview William.
Which she doesn't know.
No. Which is because he's keeping that from her
secret,
as well.
Yeah.
Herr Hildegard, as a German person, you would think I would be able to say hair better, but Herr Hildegard's niece is visiting. We find out from him.
And he's the funeral director.
Funeral director. He does basically the undertaker, I guess.
Yes, undertaker. Tilly. So Tilly is
visiting. His niece is visiting him, and he would like Eliza. See, this is just so funny because he wants Eliza to fill Tilly in on all the fashions and gossip, which is not a thing that Eliza does.
Not really her thing, no.
And Tilly is excited, in air quotes.
Quote unquote, yeah. Tilly does not look excited.
About Eliza's profession.
Maybe Tilly was excited, but she does not show it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe she's like me. Sometimes I'm very excited internally. I'm screaming, but on the outside, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's really cool. Cool.
Well, that is definitely her in this case.
But as Eliza's trying to extricate herself from the situation, he mentions that he has a case for her.
She perks
up. She's like, oh, really? And it's a case about ghost photography.
Yeah. Death photographers. Apparently this was a thing back in the day where, and I knew that they took photos of the dead.
Yes.
But we cut to a shot where the photographer actually has the dead body propped up by the head, like with vice grips.
Oh yeah, they would pose them.
Yeah, I did not know it was that.
Sometimes it was just simply like they're laying down. It looks like they're sleeping,
which is what I thought it was all the time. But no, it's right next to like this dead body. He is next to his wife, who's very much alive, and they're like, "We're going to take an
final photo."
Yeah, Owens Mills photo next to each other, but from back in the day. So
my dad has a couple of these death photos that we're not sure who. It must be family, but we don't know who it is.
Yeah, your father's a photographer.
Yeah, so. My dad's a photographer, so he has these photos, and it's like it's kind of morbid, but also I guess it's one last photo before they're buried, and you never get to see them again. So it makes some sense for like closure purposes, but it's a little creepy. I feel like it's a little bit gothic creepy.
Yes, yeah, definitely in this case, the vice grip. I was like, ooh. On the head, holding the head up with a some kind of instrument of some kind,
like a tripod.
Yeah, tripod for the
for the head. So Hildegard's friend James Henderson provides the service.
He's the death photographer.
He's the death photographer, and he's been receiving some disturbing correspondence. So he's been getting these envelopes with photos inside, and essentially the ghostly figure on all of them is his wife, who died the previous year.
Yeah, and it looks like it was done with like a double exposure. So like they had the original negative, and then they double exposed to actually add in the ghostly figure, his wife.
Yes. So you would take a negative, expose the paper, and then remove that negative and put another one on. Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm reaching back to my photography days at Hack. Yeah.
And his wife, Catherine, who is dead.
Yes, is sending these photos. That's
from beyond the grave.
From beyond the grave. At first, he thought, rationally, that someone gained access to his studio, so he burned all his negatives, but they kept coming.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was that's our big mystery: is who's sending this? Is it really the ghost? Then back at the station, the journalist is there, over-flattering William, talking him up, stroking his ego.
Reporter really lays it on thick, is my notes here.
He really, really does.
Yeah.
And he says that their readers will be fascinated to learn about the man who keeps them safe at night. It's just William.
Yeah. No mention of Eliza.
No. William asks the journalist to mention his boss, and the journalist is like, yeah, wink, I get it. We all have masters to serve.
Definitely
sees words.
Yeah, definitely sees through William's pandering. So, yeah.
But the newspaper editor, this is the quid pro quo here.
Yeah. I think as soon as the reporter realizes that William needs something out of this.
Yeah, he's just like, well, you know what? We need something too.
Yeah.
Yeah. The editor's keen to gather more readership, and the more sensational the stories, the bigger the readership. So he's looking for a tip-off or something just like really ghastly.
And then he also points out that it may not, like his interview with William may not even make the paper unless
if he doesn't get this really great sensational tip-off.
So William has the incentive because he wants to talk up his boss to get the promotion.
To get the promotion,
and the reporter is really just wants sensational stories.
Right, he wants to sell more papers.
Using William is not the interview with William is not even his real end goal. It's just to get more grisly reporting.
Just awful. The deaths of the young and beautiful, I think he mentioned, would like really draw the readers in.
Yep.
Back at Eliza's office, Herr Hildegard brings over his best magnifying glasses because there is a mark on each of the photographs in the corner. There's a little smudge. And Eliza thinks it might be blood.
That's a clue.
She asks if there's anyone who would want to harm James because Hildegard is a friend of his, and he can't think of anyone who would want to.
No, he describes him as a good man.
Yeah, and but he does share how James's wife died, and she died by suicide. So this is, there's something more to her death. It adds an extra unsettledness to is she a ghost, I think.
And that James found her. So
that's right.
Not only, so it's, and then Eliza's researching photography after that, I think. So there's this kind of like, everything is progressing with more and more information as we go through.
Amelia, James's assistant, visits Eliza.
Amelia
as well.
Evans, yep.
She says she knows who's doing it. The poor man was broken, and she knows who's doing it. It's his dead wife.
Yes.
And she shares that the man was broken because he found his dead wife. And she's the one that's sending the photos. Like this is the end of the
episode. We know that it was his dead wife.
Sending that. That's it. It was
done.
The ghost.
No more to the story here. Amelia Evans just cracked it. So no, there's more to the story.
But Amelia also shares that after her death, they became very close, and they're now engaged, and that's why Catherine is haunting them.
Mm-hmm. So Amelia feels guilty.
Right, about the whole situation. Eliza and Amelia go to visit a medium to get proof of this, and it turns out that the medium is Amelia's mother.
Yeah, Edith Evans, and so she's like conducting a seance when they arrive, and then
she knows all these intimate details about the people who are at the seance. Like, how would she ever know?
That she's getting from the dead, of course.
She's getting it from the dead. And we meet with Amelia's mom. You said Edith. I didn't write her name down.
Yep, Edith Evans, yep.
And she says that Catherine was a restless soul and is angry with her daughter, and that Catherine herself told her that from beyond the grave. Eliza asks Amelia to leave because she thinks this is all just a bunch of malarkey. This is not real.
Yes.
And she asks Edith why she's toying with her. Like, why are you doing this to your daughter? Like, scaring her so much.
Yeah. She kind of confronts her about it.
And so the medium decides that she's going to convince Eliza that she is real by telling her about the pet frog.
Which we heard about in the previous episode.
Yes, in one of the previous episodes. Mrs. Dawkins, named after her teacher.
Which is very specific.
Very, very specific.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where I'm like, well, wait, how did she
know?
Yeah,
how did she know?
How did she know?
Yeah. So back at the morgue, William's always bringing people to the morgue with him. At the morgue, the journalist is very bored by William's explanation of a murder victim.
No.
This murder is not intriguing. And we find out that, Frank shows up. And he's like, this is solved. Like, this man was shot by his business associate.
Completely undercutting William's attempts to make this
salacious and ghastly.
No.
And he's like, well, how do you know this? And there were 3 witnesses and an admission of guilt. He said, I'm glad I killed him. And then we find out that the men were chartered accountants, and this is not a sexy crime. This is not salacious at all. And so William needs to work harder in order to get his boss into the paper, in order to get the promotion.
It's all connected.
And be happy.
Yeah, and be happy with the promotion.
Mr. Potts is angry. And at first I think he's angry because William just keeps bringing buddies with him to the morgue.
I thought it was because the reporter was there.
But no, it's because Eliza is outside and she's trying to get in. Yeah. A running thing in this show is she's always trying to get into the morgue.
I will say she didn't get arrested this episode.
Oh, that's
this
true.
This is like one of the few episodes where
that's
so
true.
far
she did not get arrested.
So anyway,
I'm trying to think ahead. She did not get arrested
I don't think
in
so.
this episode.
No.
Because there's a woman outside. The journalist is very interested in this.
And like, doesn't William refer to Eliza as his cousin?
Yeah, I know.
That was I was like, wait, is that new information or is he just saying that?
No, he's making that up. He's making that up because they kissed. Remember when she was 16, they kissed. You don't kiss I don't think you kissed your cousins
I didn't
in
think
Victorian
either.
England.
But anyway, it just seemed a little bit odd. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he also says that she's very dull.
Yeah.
So not very interesting. This is nothing. And he busts out. Eliza needs a criminal background check run on the medium. That's what she's there to ask a favor.
And
as
William,
a business associate,
definitely wants to keep her away from
the reporter. So he pawns her off onto Frank. She knows, she has a feeling something's weird because he's acting real strange towards her.
Yeah.
But Frank takes her to the station, and Frank is under strict orders to give her the documents related to petty fraud.
And this
and that's it.
Yeah, because she's specifically interested in Edith Evans and like how what she may have done. She might be
like
defrauding
how
people.
She's conning people.
Yeah.
She's convinced that she's conning people.
Yes.
So she's trying to find out if there's been cases in the past about this.
Yeah.
She tries to sweet talk Frank.
Yeah.
I don't think Frank is a guy that can be sweet talked.
No, and Eliza's pretty bad at this. She does this a few times in this episode
where she's like good at sweet talking.
Yeah.
She says a man of your intelligence can make his own decisions. I wrote that down.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, I'm not going to help you anymore. Amelia, back at the photography studio, I was trying to think of what that was called.
Yep.
Amelia is taking Violet, who is James's daughter, to the park.
So we find out that James has a daughter.
James has a daughter. He apologizes for not telling Eliza about his and Amelia's engagement. Mm-hmm. And Eliza asks, like, who else would have access to the negatives?
Yeah.
And he says, Amelia. So now we have another
possible
suspect. So it's Amelia or her mother. He says it couldn't possibly be her because the whole thing's tearing her apart. She's having night terrors. And this is when he asks Eliza to stay with Amelia while he's on a business trip, which really seems a little above and beyond her call of this case.
Sometimes in these episodes, you're like, well, wait, would this really actually happen? But it happens for the sake of the story. I think this might be that a little bit, but because it just seems so much like an ask. Like, by the way, do you mind saying it?
By the way, just with my like complete stranger, I know we're paying you to solve this case, but also can you babysit my grown fiance?
Yes. She agrees to stay the night.
She does agree, begrudgingly. And during the night, Eliza tells Amelia that she doesn't need to get married. And Amelia insists that she wants to marry James. So she's kind of like, are you doing this to get out of marrying him? Like, to have an excuse. Your dead wife is haunting you because she's angry we're together and I can't marry you because of this.
Yeah. And this is where we find out the additional information that Amelia and James were together before Catherine's death. And so that adds a little more to the situation.
Color, to that situation.
And then Eliza has to stay in the room where Catherine committed suicide.
Yes, where she ended her life, and but no big deal. There's like crucifixes everywhere. Which just adds a little bit of creepiness for some reason.
Eliza's like looking left, looking right. There's crucifixes like everywhere.
Yeah. Meanwhile, William is at the bar, and he's upset that his boss is making him jump through hoops.
Yeah, he's confiding with Frank. Frank is there.
This journalist is a journalist for a gossip rag, too. Like, we have to remember, this is not like this does not have a reputable sort of reputation. That's too many reps, but you know what I'm trying to say.
It's for emphasis.
Frank asks why William puts up with Eliza.
Yeah, and then he says something very untoward about Eliza, and to William's credit, like he basically says, "You say that again, and I'll knock you through that bloody wall." So
is that what he says? I did not write down that, but he asks if he's hoping to get something out of it.
Yeah, implying more.
Frank, come on.
William may be a jerk, but he's not.
He's not that big of a jerk. No. He's not a pig. He's just a jerk.
Yeah.
So Frank basically says that she's annoying as hell, I think is his exact words. And William shares that they've known each other since they were very young, and her father mentored him. So we're not getting too much more information than we already know, but we see how passionately he felt connected to her dad, and therefore, by extension, her. Because basically her dad treated him like a son.
And I think that's kind of like the relationship that they have at the moment is more of like siblings, sort of. Like they don't like each other as much.
They're annoyed by each other. Yeah, they're trying to play each other's like weaknesses and strengths all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they start talking about this death photographer case, and we find out that the case was filed under waste of time, in quotes. Ghouls, death photographers, and messages from beyond the grave, straight out of Penny Dreadful, bloody nonsense.
Yeah. And as soon as he mentions Penny Dreadful, suddenly
something clicks.
William is interested suddenly because he's looking for these ghastly, sensational stories,
interesting stories for this dang journalist.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're going to take a really quick break, and when we get back, we're going to go into Catherine's old room with Eliza and start from there. She's a little skeeved out.
Sounds good.
All right.
Welcome back to Postscript. Where we left off, we were coming back to Eliza in the creepy room with all the crucifixes.
All the crucifixes. Yeah, Catherine was apparently very devout.
Yeah.
So Eliza's a little skeeved out. She looks very uncomfortable, and she's basically trying to tell herself, like, don't be so silly, because she's a very logical person.
Yeah.
But, like, it's dark. You're in a strange room.
Surrounded
Jesus is staring at you from the cross everywhere. Yes. And Amelia cries out.
Yeah.
And she's like, screams.
Creepy scream.
Creepy scream. Eliza gets up and runs to her. Amelia's had a nightmare. And, well, a night terror, I guess, is what it actually is, because her fiancé mentioned.
And at this point, we don't know. She could still be a suspect. This could be legitimate. We don't know.
We don't know if she's acting or if it's real.
Exactly, yeah.
Eliza offers her some warm milk or brandy, and she turns her down. She's like, none of this is going to help. And as she's getting ready to go back to bed, Amelia
She
finds another plain white envelope in her bed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's strange.
And I was like, did you put that there?
Right, I know, right? I was like, this was planted here by Amelia. Oh my gosh!
Also, the
envelope.
window is open. Yeah.
Because Eliza asks if Amelia left the window open. She can't find any footprints. She's trying to find like an intruder,
evidence,
like who would have dropped this off if it's not you, Amelia. But no one.
You, Amelia.
No one broke in. She asks who else has a key. And she mentions Ruth, the maid. So now we have a third suspect.
Yeah, and this is in the morning when she's kind of like asking a lot of these questions.
Right. This is sorry. Yes, we did fast forward
a little bit, but it's like so that everything worked out in the morning. But there's this amazing shot, like from a like the way that it was done. It was, you see Eliza and you see Amelia in the mirror next to Eliza, and they do like this cool rack focus, like a focus pull between the reflection of Amelia and Eliza, and it kind of goes back and forth. It's just, and it's not the first time they've done this.
Okay,
they do a really good job of seeing two people in a single shot using a reflection. And it's just really well done. So
I'm glad you noticed that.
I geeked out about that a little bit. It was a really cool shot, and then you can kind of see just as you're watching this show, look for this because it's just very well crafted as far as the way that.
This is not the first time they've done it. You said
this is the first time.
Done it previously, but this was the coolest.
This was better than the previous time. I noticed it before. And I'm trying to remember what specific shot or episode it was earlier, but they've done this before where they're deliberately framing the characters, but it's a reflection, so you can kind of see both people in a shot where they're not both actually in the shot. It's in the reflection. So it was a cool thing.
Cool. I'm glad you noticed it because I was busy taking notes, so I didn't get to rewatch for like just enjoyment this time.
Yeah.
So, anyways, no one broke in. Who else has the key? It's Ruth.
Ruth the maid. Ruth the maid.
Ruth the maid. And that's the third. This is our third suspect now.
Yeah.
Eliza follows Ruth as she runs her errands and sees her go to the White Rabbit, which is a messaging service.
Yeah, it's like a post office sort of. But
yeah.
But
I don't know if it's a telegraph maybe, or
no, it had to be postal because it's by letters because she was dropping off a letter.
Oh, okay, okay.
And
so after Ruth leaves, Eliza goes in and she pretends that she's friends with Ruth.
Yeah, this is another example. Like, Eliza tried to butter up Frank and failed horribly.
Right.
And then, like, this is Eliza take two. She's really bad at playing a scatterbrained lady, and she tries to, like, oh, it's just talking to this kid who's behind the counter.
He looks very young.
Yeah. And he's like, no, I'm just not. Just no.
She's like, Ruth is my friend. She's sending a message to a mutual friend. I just want to make sure she got all the details right. Can I please see the message?
He just points to the sign. There's a sign that says, like, we don't disclose any, like,
it's all confidential.
Yeah, confidential.
Which is a good policy to have.
As it should be.
It's a good policy to have.
And then Eliza just, like, artifices away. She was trying to pretend to be scatterbrained, a lady. And then she's like, look, I'm a private detective. I'll pay you.
I'll pay you money.
Yeah. And he just, like, deadpan, looks at.
No. It's confidentiality. It's, like, their whole thing.
And she's not getting anywhere. And so she looks out the window and sees William out there.
William's outside. Why is William there?
Yeah.
Why is William there? So she goes out and finds out that now he's also interested in the ghost photography case. And
for some reason.
Yeah, for some unknown reason.
Suddenly interested in
it's fine. Suddenly reopened. It's no longer a waste of time.
Yeah.
But they team up. And
they decide to share information, and Eliza basically sees through the fact that William has no information.
Right. Well, he never does. He's never actually prepared for these investigations.
No.
But they team up, and basically she talks him into very much intimidating this poor child.
The edit in this sequence is so great. It's like she's basically just like, there's a cut. And it cuts right to William, and he is, like, blasting this kid behind,
berating, like threatening bodily harm, yeah.
Oh my gosh!
And the poor kid just starts crying because he's probably 18.
The kid is
16.
crying.
Like, I don't know how young they are when they start working.
I laughed out loud. This was so funny because it was just, like, so over the top.
It was a little over the top.
The kid was like in tears, like. Trying to
It already sent, but I know who it sent to.
Yeah, and so they know where the photo was sent.
Yes. So the message, so it turns out the message has been sent to Amelia's mom,
Edith.
And we find out that she's been keeping records on.
So case closed, right?
Hundreds
Edith,
of
right?
dead people, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So the maid, Ruth the maid was sending notes to Edith, the medium,
about all of the people who have recently died, and overheard conversations related to the people who have recently died, and this includes the story of Eliza's pet frog. So
that explains that.
We at least know that Edith is not a real medium.
It was malarkey, as we thought.
Yes, she is not getting information from beyond the grave. She's getting it from Ruth, the maid.
Yeah.
And
but Edith is very clear in saying that she is not the one.
She's not sending the photos. No. She still thinks that they are from the ghost, or she implied that they're from the ghost. That's what it was. She implied that they were from the ghost because she was hoping that it would break the two of them up. She does not want Amelia to marry James.
Yeah.
I guess it would probably bring some gossip, salacious gossip to the family because they were together and his wife just died and now they're married. And so she's trying to break those two up. This is also, we get a little glimpse, Eliza being very vulnerable. She tells William, so you can see they are actually very close. She tells William that sometimes she feels her father's presence and sometimes even speaks with him.
Yes, this is the confession.
This is the first time she's actually said it out loud to anybody. And she said, "You must think I'm peculiar." And he was like, "Well, I do think you're peculiar."
Always has.
So he kind of like lightens the mood a little bit.
It does, and he doesn't judge her. This is taking a step back from him being such a jerk.
Yeah.
So
he doesn't
there's
tell
a little
her,
bit of redeeming.
You are peculiar because of this.
Yeah.
He says, "Well, you are peculiar, but that's not the reason why." Essentially.
Yes. Yeah.
Frank comes in.
Well, and this is the second time this has happened because in the very first episode of the show, like Frank's like there, and like Eliza's like around the corner, and with William, and so this is a similar.
She's
like
always
lurking. Like around, he didn't this time. Like Frank like outs the fact that that William has been trying to meet with the reporter, and the reporter was supposed to.
And this is now because Eliza's there.
Right
she realizes why they reopened the case. It's for this journalist.
Yeah. So the touching moment where she was vulnerable and William did not judge her is now undermined immediately by the fact
that he is speaking with a journalist behind her back.
Yeah.
And this is his chance though to tell the journalist about Eliza. But he's not planning to because he has to get his boss in the paper. And she very astutely points out, she goes, "Oh, you're facing prejudice in your chosen career. What must that be like?"
I have that quote too. That was so good.
She's just like, "You could do me a favor, William, but you refuse to.
Yes.
You could help me, man in power." So Scotland Yard has arrested Amelia's mother and their maid for sending the photos. He thinks it's case closed.
Case closed.
This is obviously the answer. As always.
Just, yeah.
This is the obvious answer.
The easiest answer, the most obvious answer is always the answer. And that's not the case.
That's not the case.
Because
James and Amelia, they've received another photograph. And they received it while the two were detained. So Amelia.
That rules them out.
And, not Amelia. Edith.
Edith and
the
Ruth.
maid could not have sent this.
They're not. It's not possible.
So many people's names in this. There's so many suspects here.
Yeah.
James now is accusing Amelia of sending the photos herself to avoid marrying him. So now he's bought into that possibility.
Yeah, and Amelia blames Eliza for splitting them up because
for planting that
idea.
seed. Yeah. But this is Eliza walks into the actual photography studio itself, like where he takes the photos.
And here's a little voice.
And there's a tiny little voice in the corner behind, I think it's like a couch. Mm-hmm. And she finds Violet behind the props.
This is James' daughter.
Yes. Taking death photos of her dolls.
Yeah.
And the one skin is so pale that it needs some rouge. So Yeah, go ahead.
She pricks her finger and adds a little bit of blood to it, and that's where we have...
Which is real morbid.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of...
Yeah. A little bit of that. A
little bit of blush, some rouge. And this is when we go, oh...
this is where we make the connection that, this is the blood that we didn't know was on the corner of the death photos that were being sent. So we're like, it's the daughter. And I was like... The daughter's the one sending. Like I was thinking, the daughter's like doing the double exposures and stuff. I'm like, this is a really talented kid. Yeah, exactly. She must have picked up some things. But no, it's not the daughter. I mean, it is the daughter, but it's not the daughter.
Delivering.
Yes. On behalf of
her dead mother.
So in the beginning of this episode, you think that it's not the mother from beyond the grave. It's not like some ghostly thing, but it is the mother.
But not from beyond the grave. Not in the ghostly way.
No.
It is from beyond the grave, but not in the ghostly way.
No.
Eliza asks Violet where the photographs are, and this is when she says, "My mother told me not to say," and that's how we get the full picture.
Yes.
That Catherine knew about James and Amelia.
So the mother knew about James and Amelia.
As we thought.
Mm-hmm.
And she told her daughter that they were going to play a game, which is really mean.
Really creepy.
Very cruel to do this to a child.
Right before you commit suicide.
Right before you take your own life and your husband finds you, you tell your daughter, we're going to play a game. Before James and Amelia get married, you need to deliver these envelopes, just place them around the house, deliver them. And it's really, it's so sad because Violet looks kind of terrified. She's afraid that her dad's going to be mad. And Amelia's like, don't go too hard on her. She didn't know, but he's not mad at all. Like, this is not Violet's fault.
No.
So at least we see a very gentle father being gentle with his daughter, kind of echoing Henry's relationship with Eliza because they're not all that good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's solved. There is no actual crime being committed here. It's just a child doing what her dead mother told her to do after her mother died.
Yeah.
So that was
still very creepy though.
So Victorian dolls themselves are very creepy to me. I was like, is this the one with the creepy doll? And I'm like, yeah, it is kind of the one with the creepy doll. But there was a creepy doll earlier.
With blood on the cheeks.
With blood on the cheek. And the death photography. Yeah. It's all a little bit creepy.
Comes together. Yeah. So that's done. And then we move on to the next bit, where we have Eliza is talking to Rupert about William. And Eliza's sprawled out on a couch.
She's just complaining. Yeah, she's relaxing.
Yeah. She's
very comfortable with Rupert, which I think is really sweet. She's complaining about William not holding up his side of the bargain. But Rupert's really, really distracted. He's not paying attention. He looks a little bit
and he asks her a question, and then she just keeps going, and then just basically just talks over him. Ignores his question.
That's true. Yeah, they're both just in their own little worlds right now.
And then she's mad at him for not listening to her,
right?
When she definitely wasn't
not listening to him either.
Yeah, and he was talking about the fact that his mother is pressuring for.
Right. Yes, his mother is pressuring him to be married. But he needs somebody who will complement his unconventional lifestyle.
Yes.
And so
he's implying that Eliza could be that person.
He proposes, since she's not very interested in actually being married and being tied down. I mean, it's very logical that they marry each other. But she just laughs at him, openly laughs at him.
Yeah.
But thankfully, he also kind of laughs. She said basically they would drive each other crazy and it would never work. He
agrees to that a little bit.
But yeah, he's not mad about it, at least.
But this also, I think his question that was ignored, he was actually inquiring, I think, about Herr Hildegard and Tilly in the question that was ignored.
I didn't remember
so kind of I think there was a little bit.
I guess I wasn't listening either.
Well, it was either there. It was either at that moment or it was earlier in the show. There was a moment where he was asking about Tilly.
Okay.
And so that's where kind of when we cut a little, we're almost there.
Right. Because later on we see them come together for a stroll in the park.
But before that, though, we cut from that laughter and that thing to William and Sterling. So
William and Sterling are talking about the journalist and the upcoming article.
Because William was able to secure this fantastical story.
Yes, and he did talk about his boss, so his boss should be in the article.
And he talks to Sterling, his boss, specifically about
good to go. And so, hey, how about that promotion?
Yeah. Which was pretty much implied to be
it would be guaranteed.
This.
You get this article, you mentioned me, you got the promotion, but no.
So
his promotion was given to Hudson.
And this is when Frank and William were talking about this earlier. They actually were even talking about how Sterling probably would give it to one of his old war buddies or the army things. This was
completely.
It was a kind of a foreshadowing of this specific
this exact instance. Yes, because William actually talks back to his boss a little bit. He says Hudson's only been on the force for 3 months. But Hudson was in the army, and his boss served with Hudson's dad in Crimea. Yep. It's all it's
Crimean War.
A web of connections.
Yeah.
And so
and Sterling's also afraid of his mother, Hudson's mother, or whatever. There was a little bit there was so many different factors. The fact that Hudson was a military man, that Hudson's dad was a crony, war buddy
of his mother.
And also
he's afraid of Hudson's mother.
Fearsome mother or
fearsome
whatever.
Woman.
Yes, fearsome woman. So there's all that. Yeah, so William just completely
he does not get the promotion.
No.
And so we cut from there. This is where we find out Eliza is talking to the Hildegards, and Rupert shows up, and he's there to take Tilly for a walk in the park. So he is courting Tilly as probably his life partner.
Yes.
His marriage partner, I should say. Not so much his life partner.
Tilly is very excited by all this.
Very, very excited. She has a slight grin on her face. The slightest grin.
Negligible.
But Rupert, basically, he has to have something. I mean, he's under this intense pressure to get married. If he doesn't get married, his lifestyle will probably eventually be found out. Because he doesn't have this wall of everything's normal. Look at my wife. Here's the child I was forced to have with her, sort of thing. But But then we flash back to Eliza's office. William is waiting for her there.
Yeah, Eliza comes back into her office, and she's surprised to see William there.
Yes.
And William explains that he has a spare key
Yes.
that he got from Eliza's father.
Right, because Eliza's father was very forgetful and scatterbrained and would always misplace his keys. So he always had a spare. This is actually the second spare, he said, because Henry lost the first one. He's there to leave an apology. So he wrote an apology down and left a gift. And then he very awkwardly tries to explain his apology. And she's like, is this your apology? He's like, no, I wrote it all down because you tend to infuriate me.
Which is true. Evidenced by the previous episodes in this episode.
Right.
There's that they bicker.
He hands her the police news.
Yes.
Yeah. And it says... Did I write it down? Basically, he gave her credit.
He did. Well, he was able to get to the press before it went to the presses.
Before it was printed, he was able to change his story.
He did change his story, but he only changed it after the whole thing went south with Hudson and Sterling and not getting the promotion.
I'm glad we're on the same page here.
I was like. You could have done this for the right reason. It's kind of like a second prize, which Eliza doesn't know. She doesn't know.
She doesn't know. She's very happy about it. He mentioned her. He mentioned the address of her office. It seems like he's... I wrote down, good thing his boss was such a jerk. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. And then in all caps bold, don't give him too much credit. So I'm glad that we were on the same page there. That makes me very happy.
Sterling being a jerk eclipsed William being a jerk.
Right.
So and Eliza wins in this case.
Gets credit, and she's very excited about it.
Death and the Maiden. That was the headline.
Oh, was it?
And then the credit. So yeah.
Oh yeah, it says something like solved by the first female detective.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So overall, great for Eliza, very good for business. Yep. But I'm not willing to give William that much credit for it because he could have just done it just because.
He could have, but
or
did not.
pawned the journalist off to her, and she would have had a ball talking to that journalist.
William's a flawed character.
He is.
He just keeps being flawed, keeps being
perfect,
a jerk.
And he's not great.
But Eliza does let him keep the spare key.
Yes, he offers to give the spare key back, and she says to keep it. And this is when we notice this. There's a photo that keeps getting crooked, hanging on the wall. She fixed it earlier in the episode.
I would fix it. That always bugs me if I see something that's a little bit askew.
It's crooked again, and I'm pretty sure that this is the same photo that Henry says, except that photo's a little crooked. That picture's a little perfect in an earlier episode.
Yes.
So I'm like, this is all tying together.
It's connected. I didn't notice that. Yeah, it's the same one. Mm-hmm.
So she tries to
She does straighten it,
and then it falls off the wall,
which shocked me. It was like I was not expecting that to happen.
Yeah,
and it was like just like a whoa. And,
suddenly just crashes to the ground.
Giant hole behind the
very large hole
behind the.
And she does what every human being would do: is go, "What's in here?" and sticks her hand in. Mice, maybe, I don't know. But she pulls out a notebook and
we're left
with this mystery. But I'm assuming it's a notebook from her father.
That's what I would think,
based on,
but I guess we'll have to wait
being in his office and all of that. Yeah. But so that's how the episode ends. A new mystery to be solved.
Yeah, last mystery was whether William would give credit. This episode is, what does the book mean?
What is this notebook? What's inside it? Whose is it? What's our next adventure? I'm so excited. But so Eliza did not get arrested in this episode.
No.
This is, I think, the first one.
Take note, listeners and viewers.
So I loved this episode so much. Did you have any last-minute thoughts to share?
I just really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to watch and just take notes and just see all the craft that goes into this. It's a great show.
Yeah, death photography is like my jam. I thought about going into like forensic photography at one point, but I felt like I didn't have the stomach for it. I don't know that I would have the stomach for death photography either.
I've never been interested necessarily in death photography, but I have done double exposure photography before, and I dig that as well.
I mean, you can do it really easily now with Photoshop.
Yeah, well, no, I tried it without Photoshop.
Right, in the olden days with film.
Yeah, well, it was still digital. So I'm not as authentic as the film photographers out there who might be listening to this, but it is fun to play around with.
Yeah, it is. It's super cool. So, anyways, thank you for listening. Thanks for watching along with us. If you're watching on Passport, You can watch this podcast at Mosaic, WITF Mosaic, if you want to, or you can just keep listening on the podcast app. That's fine.
If you're on YouTube, you can just search for the @sign WITF Mosaic, I think.
Yes, that should get you there.
Yep.
So thanks for joining us. We will see you. Well, we'll see you. You'll hear us next week for episode 5, which we're coming up on the end of this season, which happened fast. I thought there were more.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, luckily there's more seasons.
There are more seasons. We got a whole summer of Miss Scarlet. So, yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.